To begin with drawing the vases, the first thing I think you need is the tabletop. Otherwise you don't know where those vases are going to sit when you get to drawing them. So the first thing I like to do is, even if it's not a perfectly straight line, with my pencil, draw a line all the way across. You've practiced drawing different vases using this sheet, looking at the shapes and curves, different styles, if there are handles, things like that that you'd like to use. Now that we're on our final paper, you are going to make 5 whole vases and then a half and a half. So altogether 6, but on the edge of your paper you're gonna have 2 halves. And I would say that's probably the trickiest part. Because that's harder, that's the first thing I'm gonna do so that I don't forget to do it by the end of my project. So I'm gonna start and I'm just gonna draw a nice curvy one that's really tall, and it's just half of a vase right over here. The other side, I'm going to draw all the way on the other side of my paper. So over here I do the same thing. They can match. Sometimes students don't want them to match, and that is totally fine with me. Just make sure that it's the half of a vase and a half of a vase. Okay, so now I've got that part done. Now I need 5 more. If you are able to just draw the 5 and space it out, that's great. One of my hints that can help you if you're struggling though, making sure they fit, is to break up the space so that you can see where the 5 are gonna go. They do need overlap, but still breaking up the space might help you know how big or small you want them to be. So I'm gonna draw a light line here that I'm gonna erase later. That would give me 1, 2, light line here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This one's a little more narrow, and that's totally fine. It's going to be a skinnier bottle. This one's going to be a little bit bigger, totally fine. If it bothers you, you can fix them. For me, I like it. They're all going to be different shapes anyway. I like to start over here. Either way, any of the vases you would like to draw. I'm going to do one that's a little more boxy. So I start the bottom of my vase here, and I go up. I have to have overlap, so right here, my lines are crossing. I want this side to match. And then I'm gonna make it curve, curve, and I'm gonna have this one be shorter at the top. Making it nice and oval shaped so it looks like a real vase where I could put flowers in it. All right, this one's gonna be my skinnier one. I think my skinnier one, oh yeah, it's gonna have a long neck. So I'm gonna make the bottom of it here. There's my overlap, I gotta make sure I have that. And it goes up with a nice long neck. Now I'm in here. So we got 1, 2, and my halves. This one, let's do one of those really bumpy ones. This is the bottom of my vase. Up and up. And I gotta make it symmetrical. I have overlap and a taller one. And now I should have 2 more. This one's really wide. This one might be a little more narrow. I haven't done any with a handle. I'm thinking I want to do that. You can always look at your practice work. Maybe there's one that you already tried that you really, really like. I want to make sure this one has a handle too. You don't have to include handles. If you do, make sure it's nice and big so you'll be able to paint it. I don't want it too skinny. And the last one I'm going to do is a really round, chunky one. Gotta have a really round one. And it's just gonna have a little opening right at the top. All right, let's count the bottles. After you think you're done, I would always recommend bringing it up to me and checking to make sure that you actually have enough bottles. So here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's a half and a half, altogether 6. But I also need you to check the overlap. Sometimes you draw it and you miss a spot and they don't actually touch. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the key. These are going to be our intermediate colors, and there are 6 intermediate colors. I have to make sure that they're in the overlap areas. If I'm missing one, you can always erase, change, and add it in. The next step is we're going to add the oil pastels. They're going to resist the paint, and you're going to go over all those lines you drew, making it really pop on the paper. If I had any areas I erased or changed, it's not a big deal because the oil pastels are going to show, the paint will cover that up. When you have your oil pastels, you can choose to put them in Roy G. Biv order. I know a lot of you guys love to put them in order, but you're already painting that order. Maybe you want to have fun and do it out of order. So choose any color you'd like. And this part gets a little tricky because you're going over one of the bottles, but the other bottle is going to have a different color. So I'm going to do this one green. And when I get to this part where you might go, ooh, which line do you do? Look at where the green bottle would be. It would go straight up, curve, because this bottle's green. I don't have to do the overlapping green. Okay, there's one. And I'm going to use a darker color so you can see it. They don't have to go in order, so I could put purple right next to it. This line is the purple because it's with this vase. Make sure the sides of your vase match up. Oh, I got a little messy. Let me try and fix that. There we go, a little better. Am I coloring in these? No, because we're going to be doing our paints. I'm just doing the lines and trying to go over all of the different bases. I'm going to finish that up and check in with you before we do painting. My last reminder though, before I get there, is don't forget to do the table line. If these are glass bottles and vases, we can see through them, so we would be able to see where the table line is across the whole paper. So it looks a little silly right now, but when we get to painting, it's going to look really beautiful. Now that I've got them all done in oil pastel, I have not colored. They can be in order, Roy G. Biv or not. I've got my table line. Now it's time for us to do the painting. Because you already know your regular Roy G. Biv order so well, I'd recommend starting that way. If for any reason you would like to, instead of doing red on the far left, maybe you want to start with red here, that is a great challenge for you, but then you have to continue in the Roy G. Biv order doing the main piece, not the overlap, the main piece of each of the vases. I'm going to just go in order starting all the way on my left. Like I said, you can change that and challenge yourself. It does look beautiful. If you're worried you might mess that up, then don't worry about it. So red goes here, my first one in Roy G. Biv, and I paint right over where I see some of that oil resist. And it makes it so easy for me as a painter. I'm going to get a little more red, swirl, swirl. Remember to be gentle. Oh yeah, it's much brighter. That oil pastel doesn't want to take the color, so you have to make sure that you weren't coloring the oil pastel or playing around making extra marks, because there's not really any erasing, right? It's going to be there no matter what. Okay, red's done. I rinse my brush, move on to the next one. Orange. And paint it in orange. And you might have to keep getting water or keep going back and getting more paint. Make sure it's not just dripping everywhere. You don't want that. I'm going to try and fill in the whole thing. I'm skipping the areas with overlap though. Now that I have two next to each other, my red and my orange, the intermediate color that's going to go in this tiny little spot is going to be red, orange. So now I can do a little bit of orange in there, get a little bit of water, get my red, and make my red orange. Now my red was pretty strong, so I'm going to get a little bit more of the orange because I want it to look like a really good intermediate color. Okay, I'm happy with that one. Be careful. If this is way super wet, it's going to blend in to one of your other colors and make a mess. Just a little bit of water. After orange, my next main bottle is going to be yellow. So I get my yellow paint, swirl, 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 and this one is yellow. I can see where it's resisting. I don't necessarily want to be where the overlap is yet, but I want to do a nice bright yellow for this bottle. And when I think I'm ready to do both of those, just like we did in our practice wheel, I can paint both of them yellow as long as I quickly add the other color to make it intermediate. So I'm going to do it really quick. There's the yellow. Yellow's not as strong, so I want to make sure it's a really bright color because it's got to mix with the other ones for the intermediate. Now, I'm going to do orange and then add whatever color would be on that side. Do you remember? Here, these two, I want to mix them together to kind of make that golden yellow, our yellow orange. It should be different than this one. If it's not yellow enough, I'm going to get a little more yellow. You've really got to work to make these colors the way you want, just not more and more water. That would not be what I want. Okay, that looks nice and golden. Quick before it dries, we got to get back to the other side. After yellow will be green, so I know this one is yellow-green. Don't need tons of green, I don't want it too strong. Make a nice lime green. Good, we made it before it dried. Good. Now I'm going to keep going, making sure that the intermediate colors go in between. The main Roy G. Biv go in the vases, like here's red, orange, yellow. I'll come back and check in as I finish them all. Here it is now that I've finished painting in the whole thing. A few things to look out for and watch for. Did I paint all of the intermediate colors? Yes. Did I remember any area that the bottle was in? This part I could have accidentally forgotten because, well, it's not on the handle. It is part of my purple glass vase. Things like up here and down here should both be intermediate. A lot of those first ones just had simply one area, while this one has two, or this one has an interesting shape, and you might have to fill in those gaps. So make sure you're checking some of those. I also want to show you just some common issues that I've seen when students work on this, and I don't want you to necessarily make the same mistake, or if you do, figure out how to solve that problem. First is over here. This bottle is orange, and this one's yellow, but I've forgotten to add any yellow here, and no matter how close you look, it's just orange. There is no yellow to it. It is not an intermediate color. The next bottle, well, I've got my green and my yellow, but I haven't done it at all. So it's missing, so that would mean I wouldn't get points. I'm not getting graded on that color. And then this one is actually a really common thing that happens. Oh, I'm already getting paint on me. I have these two vases, and when I painted in the middle, I used way too much water. Or maybe I had originally too much blue, so I wanted to add more and more green. And you can see it's swimming in a puddle of color, and it's dripping, and it's going to mess up my green vase. So something like this could really feel like I'm messing up my whole project and can be so frustrating when I really just need to get less water in that area. If you're having that kind of issue, a little corner of a Kleenex could absorb it. Sometimes you can take your brush and really just make sure there's no water in it at all, even give it a little extra press. And if you put your brush there, it'll start to soak up the water and you can rinse it back into the cup. But if you have too much water and it starts to do this kind of thing, I can't really fix my green vase because it would slowly start to turn blue-green. So a few things to watch out for as you wrap up and do your painting.